So today we are taking up CGL. This CGL stands for Commercial General Liability, or some companies also define it as Comprehensive General Liability Insurance. So both are synonyms, don't get confused over the name. By either name, this policy can be known as the CGL, maybe Commercial General or Comprehensive General. Our product is approved as Commercial General Liability Insurance, so we call it Commercial General Liability Insurance. Very simple. Now see, what is this Commercial General or Comprehensive General Liability? In fact, this product is a combination of public liability and product liability. It's a combination of two major products, that is public liability and product liability policy. And simultaneously offers various other covers like personal injury, advertising injury, tenant legal liability. So they are the various other covers which are included in the CGL policy. But as far as coverage of major product is concerned, there are two: public liability and product liability. So public liability under CGL means public liability covers third party legal liability arising out of accident causing bodily injury. Now this bodily injury could be physical bodily injury, sickness or disease sustained by a person, including death resulting from any of these at any time. So bodily injury could result in any form. Secondly, property damage. Physical injury to tangible property. Tangible means which is visible, which is in existence, which stands today. So both bodily injury and property damage are covered. In addition, this also covers legal defense cost. Because normally under such circumstances, the person who is suffering bodily injury or property damage, he will file a suit. He will go to the court of law to claim the compensations. And if the case is filed before the court of law, then the legal defense cost is extra. So that is also covered under the policy. Second part is product liability. Product liability and completed operations cover under CGL. Now, product liability is something very different, means that is causing any claim for compensation that may arise due to bodily injury or property damage occurring away from premises the insured owns or rents, or arising out of insured product or insured work, except products that are still in the insured physical possession or work that has not yet been completed or abandoned. What does it mean? To simplify, if there is any bodily injury or any property damage due to any product which is already in the market, maybe with the shopkeeper, distributor or manufacturer, whoever, if it is in the hands of the insured, then it is not. But if it is already distributed, sold, or if it is resulting into bodily injury or property damage, in that case, this policy will pay compensation to that person who has suffered the bodily injury and property damage due to the use of that product. Product could be anything: edible, wearable, usable, whatever it is. So these two major parts are covered under the policy, that is public liability and product liability. What is not covered? major exclusions for bodily injury or property damage under CGL policy. WC liability is not covered under this policy because there is a separate policy, that is workman compensation. That is also known as the employer's or employee's liability. Assumption of liability is not covered. ये हो जाता तो वो हो जाता, ऐसा कर देते तो वैसा हो जाता. This is all assumption. Unless it is resulting into loss or damage, it is not paid. Aircraft or motor vehicles, because they have their separate third-party liabilities. Motor vehicle liability is covered under the Motor Vehicle Act 1988. Aircraft liability is covered under the provisions of airways or aviation insurance. Now, damage to your property. Damage to your property is the part of fire insurance. So that is also not covered. Expected or intended bodily injury or third-party damage. Expected. It means it is not resulted as on date. So unless it is resulting into the bodily injury or property damage, company will not pay anything. Damage to own property. If there is a damage to the insured's own property, that is not part of the CGL liability. That is part of the fire insurance. Damage to own employees, that is again WC, workman compensation insurance will cover. And damage to impaired properties, any kind of property which is belonging to the owner or the insured or the firm which is taking the CGL policy is not covered under the policy, because that is a separate part. That is not covered under the CGL policy. Now the additional coverage which comes under the various category of coverages which are part of the CGL and payable. The compensation is payable because of these things. So one of them is personal and advertising injury cover. Now what is this personal and advertising injury cover? If it is resulting into false arrest, detention or imprisonment because of the action of the insured, if any third person has suffered a false arrest, detention or imprisonment or malicious prosecution or wrongful entry into or eviction of a person from a room, dwelling or premises that the person occupies. That is also covered. So this personal and advertising injury is the violation of your rights, violation of your legal rights, you can say. Nobody should defame you, nobody should prosecute you, nobody should make any oral or written publication against you that is causing slander or libels, means which is defaming you or your person. So that's the kind of violation of your legal rights. And then misappropriation or advertising ideas of style of doing business. Misappropriation or advertising ideas which are not or which are far from the facts, which are not true, which are with the intent to misappropriate, which are with the intent to harm. If these things are resulting into any bodily injury, any property damage due to personal and advertising, this CGL policy will pay the compensation to the third person who has suffered it. So in simple terms, in addition to the public liability, in addition to the product liability, this is again a coverage of the CGL policy that the personal and advertising injury will be covered due to any action of the insured. I'll give you examples of all these things to you. Let me explain the first what is the content. So major exclusions for personal or advertising injury. Due to personal or advertising injury, if any person has not suffered or at the discretion of the insured with knowledge of the falsity, means the person was already aware, or written publication of material whose first publication took place before the beginning of the policy period, means the risk has not commenced, or willful violation of a penal statute or ordinance committed by or with the consent of the insured, means if the third person himself is doing any willful violation of any law or statute, still it is not covered. Or for which the insured has assumed liability in a contract or agreement, so that becomes contractual liability, that is also not covered. So in such cases, if the loss, bodily injury or property damage to the third person is caused by personal or advertising injury, this will not be paid because here the third person is defaulter. Now, certain other similar kind of things are there, like breach of contract other than misappropriation or advertising ideas, failure of goods, products or services, wrong description of the prices of goods by the third person, any offense committed by any insured whose business is advertising. Here again the compensation would not be paid. One more aspect where the CGL policy will pay the compensation to any third person who has suffered bodily injury or property damage is tenant's legal liability. Now this is a new term for you. Tenant's legal liability. This is not in our policy only. This is a part of all the policies of general insurance companies. But as far as CGL policy is concerned, all the general insurance companies are having it, but their rate is different, their add-on covers are different, even their product features are different. Because this is not a tariffed product. This is not a tariffed product, so wordings, terms, conditions, clauses can differ. Coverage, add-on, pricing can differ. So the policy differs company to company. Now what is this tenant's legal liability? This insurance applies only to property damage. Only to property damage, not to bodily injury, not to death, not to disability. Only to the property damage. To premises rented to you subject to that the premises are covered. Now the insurance applies only to property damage which occurs during the policy period. That means the property damage must be caused by an occurrence. The occurrence must take place in coverage territory. Suppose the insured has given some portion of his property to a tenant. He has let out that portion. Now some portion of that property got damaged. Some portion of that property got damaged. That is the owner's risk. Owner will do it. But if due to that property, some property damage is caused to the third person, then this policy will pay. That means property damage expected or intended from the standpoint of the insured. Property damage for which the insured is obliged to pay by reason of the assumption of liability in a contract of agreement. Property damage for wear and tear, gradual deterioration, normal upkeep and latent defects are also covered. So tenant's legal liability is a part of the policy that will also be paid under the CGL policy. Some major exclusions of this are also there, like for which the insured is obliged to pay by reason of the assumption of liability in a contract of agreement, that will not be paid. Property damage for wear and tear, gradual deterioration, normal upkeep, latent defect or inherent vice are not paid, because for that owner is responsible. Insured himself will be here, but if it is causing any loss to the third person, then only the compensation will be paid. Now, inbuilt coverage under CGL. Inbuilt coverage under CGL. What are the coverages? Act of God perils covers third-party legal liability arising out of earthquake, flood, tsunami, storm, etc. Means, because of the act of God perils, if any third person is suffering any bodily injury or property damage in the insured's premises or because of his actions or because of his products, this liability is covered. Food and beverage covers third party legal liability arising out of food and beverage violated in the designated premises. Means, designated premises means which is insured under the policy. There, if any third person, because of the use of food and beverages, suffering any liability, suffering any property damage, suffering any bodily injury, that is also covered. That is also inbuilt coverage under CGL. Then lift liability. Lift liability is also part of the CGL insurance. What is lift liability? In a lift, if any third party suffers bodily injury or property damage arising out of the lift or escalators, if by use of lift or escalators, if any third person is suffering any bodily injury or property damage, that liability is covered under inbuilt coverage of CGL policy. So that is also covered here. Now extra facilities. Extra facilities means what? Third party bodily injury, property damage arising out of facilities such as gym, sports room, spa, swimming pool. Normally this kind of liabilities are there in the hotels, big restaurants, gyms. So these extra facilities can also cause the bodily injury or third party liability to any third person. So specifying these four perils, which are act of God perils, food and beverage perils, lift liability coverage and extra facility coverage, they are covered under the commercial general liability insurance as inbuilt coverage. Inbuilt coverage means no extra premium is required for that. Insured don't need to select for that. It is already available in the policy itself. Now see how this policy works. All of you have seen there was a fire tragedy in the Upahar cinema at Delhi. All of you must be knowing it. Fire in the Upahar cinema. It occurred on Friday, 13 June 1997. So it is almost 27-28-year-old story. At Upahar Cinema, Green Park, Delhi, during 3 to 6 p.m., a screening of the movie Border. When the Border movie was released in the Upahar Cinema, then this fire tragedy occurred. And this was the worst fire tragedies. Why? Because 59 people died due to suffocation. Suffocation means not burn, dam घुटने से. 59 people who were in the theatre, who were in the Upahar cinema on that day, 30th June 1997, they died due to suffocation. Additionally, 103 were seriously injured in the resulting stampede. Stampede means bhagdad mach gayi thi wahan. And in that stampede, 103 people were seriously injured. So, when the 59 people died, 103 were seriously injured, they filed litigation. They filed the case over the Upahar cinema owner. They want 25 crore compensation for the relatives and families of the victims in the case, now considered a breakthrough in civil compensation law in India. Breakthrough means in the law this case is cited for further cases, that there was such a worst tragedy in a Upahar cinema in the year 1997 where 59 people were died, 103 were seriously injured in the stampede. Court decided 25 crore compensation to the relatives and families of the deceased persons, and that compensation was paid as per the law. Because this is a public liability, and public liability is a part of the CGL. Another example, take product liability under CGL. So how this product liability works? Crop damages of farmers due to use of insured product, that is pesticide. If somebody is using the pesticide of my company, I have taken a CGL policy, I am the insured, somebody is using my pesticides, and due to that, crop damage happens to the farmers. Pesticides, on the contrary, killed the entire crop. So the farmers filed the case against me because they used my product. This is covered under the product liability case. Court awarded defense and damages of rupees 72 lakhs. That amount I have to pay. Because this was the direct result of my product. The crop was damaged due to use of my product. So I am responsible for that. I have to pay the compensation for that. Another example. IT company office gutted by fire due to defective batteries in UPS. In a IT company which was using the batteries in UPS, batteries caught fire and the IT company's office gutted, means burned to ashes totally. What was the reason? Batteries in UPS. That was my product. So as a product manufacturer, this is my liability. Because of my product, if somebody is suffering, some company or some office is suffering, I have to pay the compensation. So the estimated cost paid was 5.2 crore, compensation by court of law. One more example of product liability. Property damage to third party machinery due to use of defective insured products. Property damage to third party machinery due to use of defective insured product, and the product was bearings. If a third person who has purchased bearings from me, he is using my bearings, but those bearings are not fitted into that machinery. That part is defective for that machinery. That has caused the property damage to that, machinery damage to that. So that person will claim compensation from me. As a manufacturer, as a product supplier, I am responsible. I have to pay the compensation. The compensation decided by 6.42 crore. So that is the example of product liability. One more interesting case. A recent case which you may have heard. Fresh in memory. What is that? Maggie. On Maggie, there was a lot of hue and cry that this product is not safe, this has the lead, that is para in that, so this is injurious to the health. For some time the product was stopped. People went to court, filed the litigation. Courts also ordered against the manufacturer. They accepted that the lead is there. So after imposing some penalties on the manufacturer, the product started again in the market. No harsher decisions to ban Maggie sales yet. Though it was proved. It was proved by the reports, testing reports, that the lead is there. That lead is unsafe for health. But still, courts impose some fine on the manufacturers and the product is there in the market. One more example of public liability. This is an example which you all must be knowing because this happened in Jaipur only and adjacent to our office. Jaipur terminal fire in Indian Oil Depot. It happened on 29th October 2009. Fire continued for 11 days. 11 fatalities, means 11 persons died. In all their depots or tanks, one by one, all tanks which were filled with petrol, diesels, they blasted like bomb shell. Fire continued for 11 days. Even disaster management team could not control. There was no system in across the country which can control such a situation where the tanks filled with the petrol or diesel, which are having sufficient margin between them. But still, the fire was so heavy, it was works like a bomb cell. So from 1 to 2nd to 2nd to 3rd, 3rd to 4th, and almost all tunnels burned. So the 11 fatalities, they filed the cases against the Indian Oil Depot, and the compensation was paid. This is a case of public liability, industrial liability, that is. Industrial liability. Few other examples. These are few other examples. See, tomato sauce got damaged at the Nestle's plant due to defective pump used to pack sauce. Now, pump manufacturer was liable to pay 2.5 million. Tomato sauce got damaged at the Nestle's plant due to defective pump used. So the case was filed against him and they had to pay the compensation. Another case. Tire failure lead to death of a car passenger. Tire failure. Firestone tire was there. It failed to work. The manufacturer asked to pay multi-million compensation to dependents. Because of that, the casualty took place. Another example. 7-year-old died after falling from the 6th floor of a hotel. When the acrylic tiles he was standing on caved in. एक 7 साल का बच्चा उस जिस टाइल पे खड़ा था वो टाइल ही टूट गई और बच्चा नीचे आ गया, मर गया. The hotel owner had to pay the compensation. 89 people choked to death in a Kolkata hospital when smoke from fire in the basement spread through the central AC duct. This was few-year-old case only. Kolkata people must be knowing it. 89 people choked to death in a Kolkata hospital when smoke from fire in the basement spread through the central AC duct. So the hospital authorities have to pay the compensation. Another example. One person died because of lift crash in Delhi. Lift manufacturer was asked to pay the compensation around 10 million. Lift crash. Initially, in the lifts, many casualties took place because that time the quality of lifts were not so good. Over a period of time, the quality has been improvised because now almost in every big society, every multi-tower building, lifts are there. Use is increasing. So those anomalies are now removed. But that time also the manufacturers were bound to pay the compensation. One more example. 19 persons including 13 children died in a fire that wrecked through an upscale shopping mall in Doha, Qatar. Means 19 persons including 13 children died in a fire in a shopping mall in Doha, Qatar. So here again, third party public liability is there. So when we are talking of this CGL insurance policy, you have to understand what is the coverage of the policy. Public liability is there, product liability is there, completed operation liability is there, personal and advertising injury liability is there, tenants liability is there. If any of them resulting into bodily injury and property damage to any third person, the compensation has to be paid as decided by the court of law. There could be out of court settlement, no doubt. Otherwise, normally people prefer that whatever amount is decided by the court, they will claim it from the insured. So this is one policy which is protecting manufacturers, firms, companies where the third party liability or public liability or product liability could be huge, very huge, or in billions. So this is a defense. Even the defense cost is payable. It also covers the legal defense cost. So this is a product. Now if you have any questions, you can ask. This is a simple product, but new to you because we are first time discussing it. And you may be receiving the quotes from the brokers for this product. You can sell this product. You can provide the quotes to your brokers because we are having this product and we are selling this product. Any questions? So please check your mail ID. A simple test paper of 10 questions is there. You can just attempt it and answer all the questions on the test paper itself. Just check whether what we have just explained is correct as per you and you have understood the words. Please go ahead, attend it. All of you have received it? Okay, please go ahead.